The rain hammered against the windows of our Seattle home, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Alaric, a software engineer, had built a life with my wife, Bront. We met in college, two awkward souls drawn together by a shared love of old movies and bad pizza. Over time, that connection deepened into what I believed was an unbreakable bond. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our comfortable silences, or so I thought. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Bront, a vibrant kindergarten teacher, began working late more often. Parent-teacher conferences, she'd explain, her eyes darting away just a fraction too quickly. I chalked it up to the demands of her job. Teaching little kids was exhausting, and I admired her dedication. She always looked tired but fulfilled. I tried to make things easier for her, taking on more chores, preparing her favorite meals, and offering massages to ease her aching back. I wanted to be supportive, to show her how much I appreciated everything she did. Then came the phone calls. Whispered conversations in the next room, always ending abruptly when I entered. Bront would claim it was her sister, Isolde, or a colleague from school. Again, I didn't question it. I trusted her implicitly. Trust was the foundation of our marriage, the bedrock upon which we'd built our life together. I couldn't imagine her lying to me, let alone betraying me. One evening, I decided to surprise Bront with dinner at her favorite Italian restaurant downtown. I knew she had a late meeting, but I figured I could pick her up afterward and we could enjoy a quiet meal together. I arrived at her school around 7:30 p.m. expecting to find her packing up her things. Instead, the parking lot was deserted except for a single car parked near the back entrance. A sleek, silver sedan I didn't recognize. Curiosity piqued. I walked towards the school. The main doors were locked, but I noticed a sliver of light emanating from Bront's classroom window. I peered inside, my heart pounding in my chest. What I saw shattered my world. Bront was in the arms of another man. It wasn't a chaste embrace. It was a passionate, desperate kiss. His hands were tangled in her hair, her arms wrapped tightly around his neck. They were completely lost in each other, oblivious to the world outside. The man was tall and muscular, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. He was someone I'd never seen before. A stranger who had somehow managed to steal my wife's affection. I stood there, frozen in place, my mind struggling to process what I was witnessing. It felt like a scene from a movie, a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My breath hitched in my throat and my vision blurred with tears. The image of Bront in another man's arms was seared into my brain, a permanent scar on my heart. I stumbled back to my car, my legs feeling like lead. I drove home in a daze, the rain blurring the streetlights into hazy halos. I couldn't think, I couldn't feel, I could barely breathe. All I knew was that my life had irrevocably changed. The woman I loved, the woman I had dedicated my life to, had betrayed me in the most profound way imaginable. I spent the next few hours pacing around our living room, replaying the scene in my head over and over again. The shock slowly gave way to a white-hot rage. How could she do this to me? How could she throw away 20 years of love and commitment for a cheap thrill with some random guy? When Bront finally came home, she found me sitting in the dark, staring blankly at the wall. She looked surprised to see me, her face flushed and her hair slightly disheveled. "Alaric, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. But I could see the lie in her eyes, the guilt that she couldn't quite conceal. "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I saw you." Bront's face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She knew she had been caught, and she knew there was no way to deny it. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. "Who is that man?" Bront hesitated for a moment, then finally confessed. "His name is Lucien. He's a parent at the school." "A parent?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You're having an affair with a parent? Are you insane?" "It just happened," Bront said, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far, it just happened." I scoffed. "That's your excuse? You just happened to fall into his arms and start making out with him in your classroom. Do you think I'm stupid?" Bront started to cry, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Alaric," she sobbed. "I never wanted to hurt you, but you did hurt me," I said, my voice cold and hard. "You broke my heart, Bront. You destroyed everything we had." I couldn't bear to look at her any longer. I stood up and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind me. I needed to get away, to escape the suffocating feeling of betrayal that was consuming me. I drove aimlessly for hours, the rain continuing to fall. I thought about our life together, all the memories we had shared. The laughter, the tears, the triumphs, and the setbacks. It all seemed like a lie now, a carefully constructed facade that had crumbled before my eyes. I ended up at a dive bar on the outskirts of the city, a place I had never been before. I ordered a whiskey neat and downed it in one gulp. I needed to numb the pain, to silence the voices in my head. A few hours later, I stumbled back to the house, drunk and exhausted. Brant was asleep in our bed, her face buried in the pillows. I couldn't bring myself to join her. I grabbed a blanket and a pillow and crashed on the couch. The next few weeks were a blur. Brant and I barely spoke to each other. We moved around the house like ghosts, avoiding eye contact, pretending that everything was normal. But nothing was normal. The air between us was thick with tension, heavy with unspoken accusations and regrets. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus on anything. My work suffered, my health deteriorated, and my spirit withered. I felt like I was dying inside, slowly being consumed by the poison of betrayal. One day, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know the truth, the whole truth, no matter how painful it might be. I confronted Brant and demanded that she tell me everything. She confessed that the affair had been going on for months, that she had fallen in love with Lucien, that he made her feel alive in a way that I no longer did. She said that she had been unhappy for a long time, that she felt trapped in our marriage, that she needed something more. Her words were like a knife twisting in my gut. I had thought we were happy, that we had a good life together. But apparently I had been blind to her unhappiness, oblivious to her needs. I had failed her as a husband. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice choked with emotion. "Why didn't you just talk to me? We could have worked through this. We could have tried to fix things." "I was afraid," Brant said, her voice barely audible. "I was afraid of hurting you. I was afraid of losing you. But you lost me anyway," I said, my voice filled with bitterness. "You lost me the moment you decided to betray me." I told Brant that I wanted a divorce, that I couldn't stay married to someone who had lied to me, who had cheated on me, who had broken my trust beyond repair. She didn't argue. She knew that it was over, that there was no going back. She agreed to the divorce, and we began the process of separating our lives. The divorce was long and painful. We had to divide our assets, sell our house, and disentangle our finances. It was a constant reminder of everything we had lost, everything we had failed to build. As I packed my belongings, I came across a box of old photographs. Pictures of Brant and me from our college days, from our wedding, from our travels around the world. Each photo was a stab in the heart, a reminder of the love we had once shared. I found a picture of Brant holding our cat, Artemis, a fluffy Persian we had adopted years ago. Brant loved Artemis dearly, and the cat was always by her side. I remembered how Brant would talk to Artemis as if she were a person, confiding in her, sharing her secrets. An idea sparked in my mind. A way to get back at Brant, to make her feel the pain that she had inflicted on me. It was a petty, childish idea, but I couldn't resist the temptation. I waited until Brant was out of the house, then I took Artemis to the local animal shelter. I told them that I could no longer care for her and asked them to find her a good home. I knew that Brant would be devastated when she found out that Artemis was gone. It was a cruel thing to do, but I felt like she deserved it. She had hurt me so deeply, and I wanted her to feel the same pain. When Brant returned home, she immediately noticed that Artemis was missing. She searched the house frantically, calling her name, growing increasingly frantic. "Where's Artemis?" she asked me, her voice filled with panic. "I don't know," I said, feigning ignorance. "Maybe she ran away." Brant didn't believe me. She knew that Artemis would never run away. She accused me of doing something to her, of getting rid of her out of spite. I denied it, of course. I pretended to be just as concerned as she was, but inside I was gloating. I was enjoying her pain, reveling in her misery. The next day, Brant received a phone call from the animal shelter. They had found Artemis and were holding her for her owner. Brant was overjoyed. She rushed to the shelter and brought Artemis home, showering her with affection. But then the shelter worker mentioned that it was Alaric who had brought Artemis in, that he had claimed to be her owner and had asked them to find her a new home. Brant was furious. She confronted me, accusing me of being a monster, of being the lowest of the low. I didn't deny it this time. I admitted that I had taken Artemis to the shelter, that I had wanted to hurt her as she had hurt me. Bront was disgusted. She told me that I was a pathetic, vindictive man, that she couldn't believe she had ever loved me. I didn't care. I had gotten my revenge. I had made her feel the pain that I had been feeling for so long, but as I watched Bront cradle Artemis in her arms, I realized that my revenge had been hollow. It hadn't made me feel better. It hadn't healed my broken heart. It had only made me feel worse. I had become the kind of person I never wanted to be. A bitter, spiteful, vengeful man. I had lost Bront, not just as a wife, but as a friend, as a human being. I moved out of the house a few weeks later, leaving Bront to start her new life with Lucien. I moved into a small apartment downtown, alone and miserable. I tried to move on, to forget about Bront and the affair, but it was impossible. The memories haunted me, the pain lingered, and the bitterness festered. One evening I received a phone call from an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered it. "Hello." I said, "Alaric, it's Isolde," the voice on the other end said. Bront's sister. My heart sank. I hadn't spoken to Isolde since the divorce. I knew she blamed me for everything that had happened. "What do you want, Isolde?" I asked, my voice cold. "I need to talk to you," she said. "It's about Bront." I hesitated for a moment, then agreed to meet her. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. Isolde looked tired and drawn, her eyes red and puffy. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice softening. "It's Bront," Isolde said, her voice trembling. She's sick. I repeated, my heart pounding in my chest. "What kind of sick?" "She has cancer," Isolde said, tears streaming down her face. "Stage 4, it's not good." I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My Bront had cancer. How could this be happening? "How long?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "A few months," Isolde said. "The doctors say she doesn't have much time left." I was speechless. I didn't know what to say, what to do. The woman who had betrayed me, the woman who had caused me so much pain, was dying. "She wants to see you," Isolde said. "She wants to apologize. She wants to make amends." I hesitated. I didn't know if I could face Bront again. I didn't know if I could forgive her for what she had done. But Isolde pleaded with me. She said that Bront needed to see me, that it would give her peace of mind. She said that it was the right thing to do. Finally, I agreed. I told Isolde that I would visit Bront. I owed her that much, at least. I went to see Bront the next day. She was in a hospital bed, pale and frail. Her hair was thin, her eyes sunken, her body weak. She looked nothing like the vibrant, beautiful woman I had once loved. "Alaric," she said, her voice weak but clear. "Thank you for coming." I sat down beside her bed and took her hand. Her skin was cold and clammy. "How are you feeling?" I asked, my voice choked with emotion. I'm not good," she said, her voice fading, "but I am at peace." She paused for a moment, then continued. "I wanted to apologize, Alaric," she said, "for everything. For hurting you, for betraying you, for destroying our marriage." "I know," I said, squeezing her hand. "I forgive you, Bront." She smiled, a faint but genuine smile. "Thank you," she said. "That means so much to me." We talked for a while, reminiscing about our life together, about the good times we had shared. We laughed, we cried, we forgave each other. Before I left, Bront asked me to do one thing for her. She asked me to forgive Lucien, to not hold any grudges against him. I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I could do that. Lucien had been the other man, the one who had stolen my wife's affection. He had been the cause of so much pain and heartache. But I looked at Bront's face, at her pleading eyes, and I knew that I couldn't refuse her. I told her that I would try to forgive Lucien, that I would try to move on. She smiled again, a peaceful, serene smile. "Thank you, Alaric," she said. "You're a good man." I left the hospital that day with a heavy heart. Bront was dying, and there was nothing I could do to save her. A few weeks later, I received a phone call from Isolde. Bront had passed away. I attended her funeral along with her family and friends. Lucien was there too, standing in the back, his head bowed in grief. I didn't speak to him. I couldn't bring myself to do it. But I did think about Bront's request, about her desire for me to forgive him. After the funeral, I went back to my apartment, alone with my thoughts. I sat down at my desk and wrote a letter to Lucien. In the letter, I told him that I forgave him for his role in the affair. I told him that I understood that he had been in love with Bront, and that he had acted out of passion, not malice. I told him that I hoped he could find peace and happiness, and that he would cherish the memories of Bront for the rest of his life. I mailed the letter the next day, and then I tried to move on with my life. It wasn't easy. The pain of Bront's betrayal and death lingered for a long time. But I eventually learned to cope with it, to accept it, to move forward. I never remarried. I never had children. I lived a quiet, solitary life, focusing on my work and my hobbies. But I never forgot Bront. She remained in my heart, a reminder of the love we had shared, the pain we had endured, and the forgiveness we had found. And I learned a valuable lesson about life, about love, about forgiveness. That even in the face of betrayal and loss, it is possible to find peace, to find healing, to find hope. Years later, I was diagnosed with a rare heart condition. The doctors told me that I didn't have much time left. I was at peace with the news. I had lived a long and full life, and I was ready to face whatever came next. As I lay in my hospital bed, waiting for the end to come, I thought about Braun. I wondered if she was waiting for me on the other side, if we would be reunited in the afterlife. I closed my eyes and smiled. I was ready to see her again, to hold her in my arms, to tell her that I loved her one last time. The rain continued to fall outside my window, a gentle, soothing rain. And as I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. A sense of closure, a sense of hope, a sense of love. The end.